Hi there everyone, and welcome to our buildup of our Revell 172 scale German U-boat. This is the Type 7C kit in 172 scale like I mentioned, and we're working on the outer hull section of the model here first, and just wanted to point out a couple things that we start with here on this build. We wanted to go in here first and open up all of these holes in the area on the outer hull here. These are called the limber holes. These are where the water actually drained out of when the submerged and then resurfaced. And you can see we've been using a combination of a few tools here. I'll start off by explaining that we used our die grinder here, which is an air-powered tool. You can also use an electric Dremel tool with the same type of a setup here. And we just took this and die grinded this area down here on the back side of these limber holes to make them thinner, the actual plastic. And then we were able to easily come from the outside here and start working our way through, using first poking holes through this with our pin vise, and then coming back and cleaning everything up with our hobby knife here. And the round holes, of course, we drilled those out using the exact size drill bit, but you can see we've worked these all open. So what I'm going to be doing now, after we do that technique, we still wind up with a little bit of a kind of rough plastic and fuzz and things like that from your filings and your cutting and everything inside these holes, and we want to make them look a little bit cleaner. So I've got this little solution right here that I've mixed up, which is just a simple solution of lacquer thinner cut with some water. And as you know, lacquer thinner straight on plastic will begin to melt it a little bit, so that's exactly what we wanted to do, but we don't have it too powerful, so it's about a 50-50 mix here. And we're just going to start brushing this on the back side here, and this will actually get in there and just slightly melt our little, if you want to call it flash or leftover, shavings and everything, the little fuzzies that are in these little holes that we've been working on here, and it'll smooth those right out and make them a lot more natural looking on the model and more sharply cut out. It's a really nifty little trick that I picked up from another YouTuber out there called Wet Willie CCMA. You can check out his YouTube channel. He builds a lot of military models, U-boats, tanks, planes, all kinds of stuff, and I picked up this little trick on I think it was a 144 scale U-boat kit that he was building, and he showed this little trick for opening up the holes on that one. So it works really good, and I let this sit for just a couple of seconds and work its magic here, and then I want to put it back to inert. So what I'll do is I'll just I've got a little pump spray bottle here full of water. I'll just start dousing this down, and that's cutting the lacquer thinner right away and stop it from doing any more melting damage here. We're damaging it in a good way. And okay, we've got that pretty well. So I'm just going to blow it off with my compressed air real quick. Okay, you can see that we've dried this up now, and I just wanted you guys to have a look at these holes now from the outside. You can see they look really nice and clean, just almost as good as the photo etch. Now, a lot of guys, when they build this up, they'll cut this whole section out. You can buy photo etch parts for this model that'll replace all this stuff, but I wanted to try doing it without it. And another reason is that you have a lot of small little rivet patterns and everything around here that you're going to lose if you overlay this panel on top. You're going to have to do some putty work to hide that. And so it'll look nice with the original plastic and all the detail still in place here. These I determined are just too small to work on. I just don't want to mess with those. When we paint this up, we're just going to put a little bit of black shading in there with our weathering and wash techniques with our painting that'll make those look like those have been opened up. But we've got all the major ones here in the front and the rear, as you can see. And it came out really clean, so we're ready to move on. We're going to repeat the same process on the other side of the port side of the hull here. Once we complete that, then we'll be able to glue these two pieces together. We can start working on adding some of our detail, like our propeller shafts, our diving planes, and some other items that need to go on here. And then we're going to be ready to start doing some painting on this, so I'm really excited about getting going on that. Really looking forward to this kit. I've been wanting to build one of these for quite a while, so we're having some fun here doing it on the channel with you. So be back with a little bit more updates on it in just a little bit. Okay guys, back with you for some more of our U-boat buildup, and you can see that we've made a lot of progress here. We've assembled the two halves of the hull, we laid down our adhesion promoter, and then we primed this, and we've put down our basic hull colors here. We started off with a dark gray on the lower hull and a lighter medium gray on the upper hull and a darker gray up on the decking. And we've started to add in layers of weathering now. Now we explained a little bit of how we were doing this the other night on the Model Shop Guys show, but we're going to take you through this here a little bit. As I mentioned, we started off with a dark gray on the bottom, and then we started using our airbrush using 3 or 4 different colors of gray, and we went in and we started making these vertical streaks up and down, just overlapping and varying in size and width and things like that. So what we got there is a washed, weathered kind of look, like a ship would be like this that was out at sea in the salt water for several months. And then we came back over top of that with some a black wash using this Createx acrylic water-based paint here, just mixing it up with a diluted solution of water and a couple drops of Dawn dishwashing liquid to break the surface tension on that and make it spread around a little bit easier. And we just brushed it on all over the model, let it dry a little bit, wiped it off, and that left all the highlights. You can see some of that streaking and highlighted effects here more prominently on the conning tower. And then we started doing this rust technique, guys, and this is really cool. We're using these oil-based paints here, primarily these two colors here, which are burnt sienna and yellow ochre. And what we're doing is we're just dabbing a slight little bit on here, on the upper part here, and then using some water to dilute it, just getting a wet brush and just dragging it down. And you can see that the result here really gives a realistic looking rust effect. And we did that all over on all of our panel lines here. You can see where we've got it like streaking down and laying on the bottom of the model there on the hull, down here by the propeller shafts, and all along the sides here. You can see that we followed our little rivet patterns there on the sides of the conning tower, and that just makes the model look so much more realistic, guys. It adds so much to this, and you can see it's got a really weathered, used look like a lot of military vehicles do. So this is turning out really, really cool. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start working on the decks here. We've got these, the aft and the foredeck here, which we haven't started our weathering on it yet, so I'm going to set the camera up on a tripod, and we're going to take you through our process of how we do this here. So sit back and enjoy that. We'll be right back with that, everybody. Alright, let's get started on our deck work here. Well, you can see, everyone, that these decks right now, they look pretty plain. As I mentioned, we just sprayed these down with some basic medium to dark gray to start with, and we've got to start layering on our weathering now. Well, the very first thing that I'm going to start doing here is use my airbrush. What I've got in here is I've got a little bit of light gray mixed up, my light to medium gray, and I'm just going to dust over this in a couple of spots just to add some color definition on this thing, to make it look like it's been washed and faded a little bit. And we don't want to overdo this. We're just going to spray on a little bit here and there, just to kind of highlight things, and go across and maybe back and forth in a few spots here. And it doesn't look like much right now, guys. You can barely see this, but it will really make a difference here when we start doing some work with the rest of our weathering techniques. Okay, and you can see it already did a little bit there and added a little bit of life to that. We're going to shut off our airbrush here now. Now what we want to do next is we're going to work with some of our oil paints here. We've got our burnt sienna and our yellow ochre here. We've got a little bit of water. We've got a couple brushes ready to go. We've got a broad brush for spreading it around, and we've got a small thin brush here to apply it. So first we're going to start off with our darker color here first, and you can see I'm just going to put a little dab of this down on my mat. A little bit of this stuff goes a long ways, and the very first thing we want to do is we want to kind of spread it out and make it a little bit flat here, so that when we're picking it up with our brush, we don't put a big glob on that. And then I'm just going to go through in certain spots here, and I'm just going to start putting this on where I want some rust to appear, and usually just kind of highlight it around objects and things like that that you know would catch and hold water, and then it would slowly run off and you'd get that rust effect going on. And we're just going to put it on various spots here on the decking. and we don't have to be super careful with this. Like I said, you'll see why in just a second here. Just kind of put it on in areas that we want to highlight. Around the hatches and things like that. Just little areas of detail. Okay, and you can see that we've got a basic couple blobs of this stuff on here and there, and it doesn't look like much right now, but let's start working with it here. We're going to dip our broad brush in some water, and then we're going to just start working this stuff around a little bit. And against this gray color, this burnt sienna lightens up when you spread it around and starts to look like more yellowish oxide, like rust looks. And you can see I'm just kind of spreading it around here, make it look like it's just been working its way across the decking here. Some areas that I want it to look a little bit more reddish, I just leave alone. I don't brush quite as hard. And you can see the effect that that has. You can just spread this stuff out. We want these little hatch covers here to remain kind of rusty, but we want a kind of a trail of rust around the edges of it, so I'll just kind of stay away from my original part here. And just spreading this stuff out. We're going to put a little more right there in the center. I see a couple little hatches that could use some detailing. And I'm kind of new to this myself, guys. I'm learning this, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. I used the internet and some of the forums out there to go around and look and see how people were doing some of this work, and I found some excellent tutorials out there. Just type in weathering on YouTube in a search and you'll find a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of it's mostly military models and guys that are doing car modeling that want to make old cars look really rusty and things like that, and some model railroaders out there too that do really excellent work with this that I've seen. So it's just a whole lot of fun. I started doing this and I've really gotten immersed into it. Really enjoying building up this submarine kit. And you can see as we start moving things around here, we kind of concentrate it in some areas, and then we just kind of start lightly dragging it over to other areas to make it sort of blend in and things like that. And I've got a little bit of water buildup on this, so I'm going to blow it off with some compressed air here, real lightly. Now I can take a look at it and see how it's going so far, and you can already see that we've got this nice rusting effect going here. We've got a little bit more concentrated up in the front where these details are, and you can see it kind of fades out here where we scrubbed on it a little bit more. We're going to go ahead and go with a little bit more on here, and we're going to do some of these things like these hatch covers, and sometimes you wash a little bit too much off and you just need to come back and put a little bit more and do it again. We want to kind of highlight some of these rivet patterns and things like that that you know that rust would collect around areas like that. Anything that's raised, like you see on real objects. We just paint a nice little straight line along these rivets, and then when we brush over that we'll get a nice effect. Okay, let's give it a little bit more wash here. Just going over this rivet line here. That already looks really good, guys. I really like how that works. just so easy to blend in. And using this oil-based paint, you can, if you make a mistake, you can just simply wipe this off with a paper towel and start all over. And that's what I really like about this. And it does not attack your existing paint at all, so you don't have to worry about you know, upsetting your base coat and having that start to smear and streak in. That's another reason why I'm using water with this paint, guys. A lot of guys use what's called terpenol, which is a thinner for this oil-based paint, and I tried some of that and I just didn't like what it was doing. It was, like I said, if I wasn't really careful and I stayed working on a spot for too long, it would start working its way through my my base coat here and smearing the paint, so I didn't really like that too much. So I decided to try it with water, which is a neutral agent here. It won't attack my paint at all, and it's just working perfectly. It's breaking this stuff down and allowing me to move it around just exactly like I want and control it really well. So I'm very pleased with it. The process is working really, really nice. Now what we'll be doing on this also, guys, is to bring out some detail here. We're going to be doing a black wash on this so that we can get down in all these little nooks and crannies, this decking, and make the decking look more like it has more depth to it, and there's something real underneath of the lattice work here. But what we've got to do is we've got to get this rust coat on here first, and then we've got to dry this. We've got to seal it with some of our Tester's dull coat here, and then we can do our wash, because we don't want to start putting a lot of black on here with a lot of water. We'll just start smearing it and mixing with our rust, and we don't want to do that. So we have to seal in between these weathering techniques here, and that's how you go from one layer to the next, with a seal in between. Okay, I'm liking how this looks, so what we're going to do now is we're going to dry it off again real quick. Have a look in the camera here for you guys. You can see we're starting to get this spread out really nice. We've got a nice streak here going on the front. Might be a little bit stronger than I like it to be here, so we'll just go over it a little bit more. That will break it down a little bit more, make it look a little less bold, a little fainter. And there we go. Now, to add some realism to this, what we want to do is we want to add another color in here. So now we're going to switch to our yellow ochre, which is a sort of a mustard yellow, dark mustard yellow color. Again, we're going to get this spread out here so it's nice and thin. And I'll use a paper towel to wipe the excess off my brush to start with. Now here we don't want to blob this around quite as much. We want to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more thoughtful about where we're putting this on, because this is kind of our highlight color, guys. So we're just going to dab a little bit here and there on these little objects, just to make the rust look like it has multiple stages to it. The more yellow stuff has been rusting harder, and the more red oxide looking stuff is more recent rust. It's pretty much how you can think of like real rust looking, like we're all used to. And just a little couple spots here and there. Put it towards the back so we kind of balance things out here a little bit. Some around this hatch. It's grading work. And that's about it, I think, guys. So now we're going to go back to our wash technique again here, and we're just going to start spreading this stuff around. Just ever so slightly. You don't want to completely wash it away. Just lightly dragging my brush over this surface, guys, with my water. And I'm picking up just a thin amount on my brush here so I can take that and put it in other places where I want it, just to kind of blend it in. Just a little bit on the edges of the decking here. We got some areas that still look just plain gray, and we just want a real thin layer of oxide starting to happen on that. Salt water is really brutal. If you've ever owned a boat that operated in salt water, you'll know how hard it is to maintain it. It doesn't take long at all before it really starts attacking everything. So one of these U-boats that would be out to sea for several months would definitely be showing worse for wear when it returned to base. Okay, so you can see now that we've got a second color on here, and you can definitely see where it's showing up. We got a little bit right here. It's a little too strong there. I'm just taking that down just a little bit. But it's added it actually has added several colors to our weathering here. You can see that where it's on the very top, it's more of that light mustard yellow, and then it's mixed in sort of a tan and then a darker red, and it just kind of, as I said, as it dissolves together, it blends in, and it looks just like real rust and weathering and age. So it's just done by a natural process over time, and you can replicate that here with your oil-based paints. So we can see we've got a nice look going on there, guys. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dry this off real quick with our air again. Let's go ahead and clean up our excess paint here so we don't smear that all over. Cap our paints. And these little tubes will last you a long time, guys. I paid like $12 for I think there's 10 different colors in this little set that I got here, so it's really economical. It's really neat, and I'm really happy with the effect that it gives you. So we've got this dried off right now. We're going to use our heat gun real quick on this, just to absorb any moisture that might be in there. Hiding in the crevices there. We're keeping this heat gun several inches away. Like you can tell, this is thin plastic. It wouldn't take much to melt or distort this, so I'm being really careful. Heat gun set on low. And it doesn't take a whole lot. We just want to make sure we get all that moisture out of there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to seal this with our Tester's Dull Coat, which is just a nice, even coat here. And we'll give it a second, and then we're going to hit it with our heat gun here to dry it. Then we'll be able to do our black wash here, which I'm going to start getting that ready. My paint's a little bit thick here, so I'm going to dilute it a little bit. Now beforehand I dropped a couple of drops of Dawn dishwashing detergent in this stuff, and you might ask why we're doing that. Well, when you read a lot of these guides about doing this weathering and washes and things like that, people are recommending that you use that. What it does is it breaks the surface tension of the water, so it'll tend to stay and flow into areas that you want it to flow into rather than try to repel away from it like water does in its natural state. So that will help you spread this stuff around a little bit more. Let's go ahead and give this a dry now. Tell that we got a little bit thin up here on the front, so we're going to just give it a quick touch up. Make sure it's sealed really good. Now there'll be a few little details that will be gluing onto this. There are a couple little objects that go here, and then we've got some railing. We've got the little kind of sharp object, serrated edge here at the front that they use for cutting nets that we're going to mount on the model, and so we'll just be doing some airbrush touching up with that and some hand weathering on that once it's all attached. And you can see we've got this dry now and sealed up. So now we're just going to take our broad brush here and we're going to dip it in our black acrylic paint, and we're just gonna spread this all over, not even having to be very careful, guys. You just want to make sure you kind of work it down in these recesses and things like that, all over the deck. We want to highlight these details. That's the purpose of this technique we're doing right now. Want to make sure it gets down inside that grating as much as possible. Very easy to do here, just using plenty of it. You don't have to skimp on this stuff. And this makes a really nice difference. You'll see when we show you the results here, guys. Just making sure I get it in all these little grates here. It's looking good. You can see it starting to work its way in there like magic. Just basically flooding these things. Really coming out nice. You can just literally see it working in front of you. Once you get this all on there, we just got to let it sit for a little bit here. And let the air start drying it up. And then we're going to take a towel here. Just an ordinary towel. One of these detailer's towels works good, and we're just going to start dabbing this off of here. I don't want to do it just yet, guys. I'm going to come back in just a second. We're going to have to take some time off the camera and let this dry, so we'll show you what the results are in just a few minutes. Okay, everybody, back we are with our final segment of the work that we're going to be doing on our U-boat kit today in this video. And you can see we've made some good progress, guys. We left you with the work that we were doing on the decks, and you can see we've installed the foredeck here and the mid deck. Those are actually glued down. You can see the result of the weathering work that we did. We started adding some of the superstructure here, the net cutting system, and the little part down below on the bottom of the underneath of the bow. And you can see I really like that. That's that classic silhouette that we always saw on these U-boats in the old World War II movies, and I really think that looks great. And here you can see some of the weathering that we've been doing. It's really turning out nice on the model. It's adding a lot of detail to this. Here you can see the weathering we've got on the side of the conning tower. And we're going to be making up some small little decals for the emblems that we saw on the submarine from Das Boot. It's sort of a little swordfish looking guy up there, black with like a saw nose on it. really a cool looking little logo, so we're going to put that on there as well. And you can see some more of our weathering here on the sides. The rear deck hasn't been glued down, guys, because we drilled 2 tiny little holes in the back, as the instructions tell you. We've got to run our thread up through there with some knots on the back side of that and leave them hanging. Those are going to be for some of the ship's rigging. It might be for the antenna, I'm not sure, but it runs from the rear up here to the conning tower, and then we go up here to another part on the front of the conning tower that goes down to our net cutter system here. And you can see we did the weathering around that too, to make it kind of look like the rust was kind of leaking off the edges and stuff there from that structure. And I really, really like how this is working, guys. This weathering technique works really, really good on a model like this, and it just brings it to life. As you can see, it completely looks real. If you put it in some scale water where the waves were the right speed and everything and got a nice background, it would pass for the real thing. So I'm really, really happy with how it's looking. One of the things I'm going to mention that I ran into, and it was a real challenge while you were away, guys, is that we had this whole structure here. We found this in a million pieces in the bottom of the box, and basically the only thing that was intact were a couple of these little slat pieces here, the thicker wood parts, and I couldn't even find half the pieces. I'm kind of wondering if this maybe why the guy sold this kit. I got this kit off of eBay. He might have thought he couldn't build it without that, but what we wound up doing here, guys, is after a little brainstorming, I used this magnet wire here, which is actually a pretty thick copper, and I just basically shaped almost this entire thing, guys. You can see one little segment there that hasn't been painted yet that I made, just going off the best that I could off the pictures of what the kit instructions look like, and then this box art, the pictures of the model on the box art, and I think I got it pretty nice. I'm really pleased. You can see a couple little spots in between the spokes where it's a little bit thicker than it should be, where I had to use some glue, but other than that, I'm really, really happy, and it's better than not having one at all. And I'm telling you guys, it was a lot of work. I was sitting here for about 3.5 hours cutting and precisely trying to put this little jigsaw puzzle together, and I'm really, really pleased that we were able to save that. The entire part back here, the antenna, everything was broken. The ship's bell was broken off. I had to put all that stuff back on there, guys, so it was really sad to see that. And after seeing that, I went and checked the rest of the kit's parts now really thoroughly, and it doesn't look like anything else is damaged or missing. So luckily we dodged a bullet there, guys. So okay, everybody, well, that's going to be a wrap for today's video. We had a great time working on our sub today, despite that little challenge. But again, just kind of thinking about it a little bit and using what you've got at your disposal and a little time and patience, we were able to work our way around that, guys, and had fun doing a little bit of scratch building as well. So that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for checking it out, guys. We'll be back real soon with some more work on our U-boat kit here on the Scale Model Action channel. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you again next time. Until we do, take care and happy modeling, everyone.